Welcome to the Explainer. So, what if the word Christmas didn't mean what you think it means? Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating theological argument from our source material that completely redefines this holiday, not as a birth, but as something else entirely. Let's get into it and see how one little word can be flipped on its head. Okay, so let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of this thing. Is Christmas actually about a birth? Well, according to the source material we're looking at, the answer is a hard no. It suggests we should actually see it as a symbol for an ending, a kind of dissolution of a part of ourselves. To really get our heads around this concept, we're going to walk through 6 key steps. We'll start by rethinking the whole idea of sacrifice. Then we'll look at the traditional ritual it's being compared to. And from there, we'll see how this new prophetic meaning leads to a final, pretty radical transformation. So, right off the bat, the first big shift in thinking is moving away from an external ritual, something that's done for you, to an internal, personal process. It's kind of like the difference between watching a movie and actually being the main character. This is all about something happening inside of you. Okay, so the source we're digging into here presents this new theological framework it calls euchagic, and it's positioned as a kind of bridge, something that connects older Christian ideas about faith and works to what it calls a new Islamic revelation. Now, this is a really key point because it frames this whole reinterpretation as an evolution in religious. Now, to really understand this new idea, we've got to know what it's being compared to, right? So let's quickly touch on a baseline here by looking at the traditional Catholic Eucharist, because that's the main point of contrast. In that traditional view, the focus is on something called transubstantiation. This is the idea that the bread and wine literally become the body and blood of Christ. The whole goal is to receive the Spirit by consuming these physical things. But, our source argues, this whole process keeps the believer kind of stuck in what it calls a carnal or fleshly way of understanding their faith. So if we move away from that physical ritual, this new framework finds all of its meaning in the word Christmas itself. It basically breaks it down into 2 parts, Christ and Mass, to reveal what it claims is a hidden prophetic message that's been there all along. And here it is. This is the crucial twist. The entire argument really hinges on redefining that second part, Mass. It's not a church service, no. In this view, Mass is an action. It's the process of dissolving or mashing the carnal self, which is seen as a prison for the spirit. This slide just lays out the new formula perfectly. You start with Christ, which is the embodied spirit. Then you add Mass, which is that process of dissolving the flesh. And when you put them together, Christ Mass becomes a prophecy. It's a vision of the spirit finally breaking free from its physical prison. Pretty cool, right? All right, this brings us to the absolute core contrast of this whole idea. On one side, you have the traditional external sacrifice, and on the other, you have this new internal one. Let's see how they stack up against each other. So check this out. The object of the sacrifice completely flips. Instead of consuming something external, the bread or the host, the focus shifts to destroying something that's internal, the carnal mind, which this framework sees as the real prison of the spirit. This table really just brings it all together. I mean, look at the differences here. The sacrificial object goes from the host to the carnal mind. The date moves from December 25th to the 26th. The core idea shifts from atonement through ritual to resurrection through understanding. And the end result? It's not just about maintaining your spirit, but about creating what it calls a divine government right inside yourself. So, what's the deal with those dates? The shift from the 25th to the 26th is definitely not random. The source material actually calls it a mathematical rebirth and argues that these numbers have a deep hidden meaning. Let's see what it is. So in this framework, the number 25 symbolizes the old system at its absolute peak. And here's how they get there. You take the 12 disciples, you add the 12 tribes of Israel, and you add the one spirit that is still bound to them. That gives you 25. It represents a system that's complete, but ultimately limited and physical. The number 26, on the other hand, well, that signifies a total break from that old system. It's called the 13th hour, which is a symbol for a totally new beginning. This is the moment when divine understanding, what it calls the Word, is said to resurrect the Spirit, creating a new internal government of law, represented by that number 13. So you see, this isn't just about changing a day on the calendar. It's really the final necessary step in a theological journey. Moving from the 25th, which represents bondage, to the 26th, representing release, is seen as completing a kind of preparatory stage for this whole new understanding. And all of this leads to the ultimate conclusion of the source material, a complete and total redefinition of sacrifice. It's not about a historical event anymore. It's an active, ongoing process that's meant to happen right now within the believer. Now, according to the source, the catalyst for this internal dissolution, this big change, is the prophetic word delivered by a specific messenger, Minister Farrakhan. In this particular view, it's his word that has the power to act on that carnal ego and actually dissolve it. So in the end, the sacrifice isn't a person at all. It's a lifestyle. The source even points to the Bible here, specifically 1 Peter, to define the sacrifice as the death of things like excess, lust, and idolatry. The idea is that by giving up these behaviors, the mind becomes armed and ready for a new spiritual reality. And that leaves us with one last big question. I mean, if a word as familiar and common as Christmas can be completely deconstructed and given a new, hidden meaning like this, it really makes you wonder, right? What other words or ideas or traditions are we just taking for granted? What other hidden meanings might be out there just waiting for us to find them?